Hi, I'm a Homo Deus. Do you still believe in your life objective of know thyself? I know what you are trying to do. The third part of this book questions the idea of self. He is just trying to mock me. Hi, I'm a Homo sapiens from planet Earth. I call myself Alpha, and I'm a Homo sapiens from parallel Earth, and he calls me Beta. Today we're talking about Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari. This is the third part and last part of this book. In the first part, we talked about how Homo sapiens conquered the world and set an agenda for themselves. Agenda of happiness, immortality, and ultimately divinity, becoming Homo Deus. In the second part, we talked about how Homo sapiens gives meaning to the world. In the third and last part, we'll talk about how Homo sapiens loses control. This is the most interesting part of the book. Earlier part talked about an individual having free will. This part debunks that myth of free will scientifically. Liberal humanism says an individual possesses valid feelings and has free will, and that is the basis for becoming a voter and a consumer. But today's biotechnology challenges that idea of a rational voter and consumer. Rather claims the word freedom is just an imaginary ideal, like the idea of soul that Homo sapiens in earlier eras believed. Free will is just an empty idea that we Homo sapiens invented and glorified in our narratives. Science today tells us there is no such thing as free will, and certainly no such thing as individual freedom. Our idea of freedom is that we possess the ability to work whichever way we want to satisfy our desires. The writer says, yes, we have freedom in that sense, that we can work towards the satisfaction of our desires, but so do other animals. Accurate question to ask is, where do those desires arise from? Evolutionary biology has the answer: natural selection. One creature may decide to eat particular food or mate with a particular creature. Choice of food and mate is through free will, but desires that are at the root of those choices, namely hunger and procreative urges, are ingrained through natural selection in that creature. Evolutionary biology tells us that everything is governed by natural selection. Individuals are free to satisfy desires as they wish with their own free will, but they cannot choose those desires in the first place. Our desires are nothing but biochemical processes within us, and they are largely deterministic or random, but certainly not free. Self is an illusion, according to science. We have come to understand that there are no such things as soul, free will, or freedom. I think this is damaging to you. Your whole life objective that you claimed gave meaning and direction to your life was to know thyself. You want to understand yourself. You want to understand the entire universe that you claim to be inside you. And now science tells you there is no such thing as self. So what is exactly that you're investigating? I think perhaps I'm wrong, and my project is wrong. I am in a cognitive dissonance right now. Not just because of this book. I knew for a long time self is an illusion. Yet there is someone inside me that keeps asking questions, keeps prodding to search for meaning. It might not be self as such. How about we do an idle chat about the idea of self sometime? Sure. I'd be more than happy to enjoy your cognitive dissonance. Writer mentions an experiment in which scientists make rats do things with the use of electrode stimulation. Rats perform certain acts not out of their own will, but because electronic stimulation provides them with pleasurable sensations when they do those acts. Pleasure as a reward. Writer claims this same can be done with humans. In human brain, certain spots that incite feelings of depression can be made blank with the use of electrodes. Thus, depression can be cured. So, what does that say about humans? If our biochemistry and consequently our desires can be manipulated, where is the free will? Book mentions we are not individuals but two selves. One is an experiencing self and another is a narrating self. An idea much elaborated in a book, Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. We'll talk about this book some other time. But for now, this book says our narrating self creates an ideal and our experiencing self suffers in pursuit of that ideal. Writer gives an example. Our boys did not die in vain. Politicians sent a few thousand men to fight an unwinnable war. And when war was lost and boys are dead, politicians cannot go back and tell their parents that your boys died in vain. Instead, they will send more boys to an unwinnable war to justify the loss of earlier boys. This goes on and on because of politicians' fallacious notions of the glory of the nation, which must be upheld at any human cost. This happens with individuals as well. A soldier can believe, I lost my leg because I uphold the integrity of this nation over my life. Or he can alternatively choose to believe, I lost my leg because I was foolish enough to believe politicians. This goes for all of us. We are all torn between our idealistic narrating self creating myths and our experiencing self suffering to uphold those myths. Writer says it is easy to believe these myths and fantasies created by our narrating self because they give a sense of meaning to our lives. Just like my friend here, Alpha, created a myth of authentic self and spends his time and mind in pursuit of know thyself because he thinks it gives a sense of meaning to his life. Writer says such narratives are usually fallacious, but we don't accept them as such because that will invalidate our efforts, our experiences, and our lives. So we carry on with fallacious narratives in hopes of them providing meaning to our existence, just like my friend here, Alpha. Our experiencing self goes through various experiences on a moment-to-moment basis, but our narrating self creates a meaningful narration out of those incoherent momentary experiences. And as liberal humanism tells us that the meaning of life is not in the outside world but lies within us, we tend to believe those glorious narratives created by our narrating self to be meaningful. Science discredits this notion. It says self is a biochemical algorithm that experiences one moment, then fades, then experiences another moment, and so on, and fallaciously creates a narration out of that. This narration is not true to reality. In the 21st century, decoupling of intelligence and cognition is already happening. Machines are more intelligent than humans, although they lack consciousness. But consciousness is of no use to productivity anyways, so humans will lose their value as individual beings. Collective masses may still have some value as passive consumers. Artificial intelligence is a smart algorithm that can drive cars and trade in stock markets today. Tomorrow, AI will replace lawyers, teachers, and even doctors, as it functions far more efficiently than any humans. Algorithms don't care on which platform they operate, a biochemical platform, namely humans, or a silicon platform, namely machines. They will just seek efficiency, and the silicon platform offers much better efficiency. We humans think there will always be something that only humans can do that a machine cannot, but that's a fallacious thinking. Writer says machines will surpass humans in all spheres of our lives. Problem with us modern humans is we each have specialized ourselves in one particular task, which is easy to replicate for a machine. Unlike our hunter-gatherer ancestors, who needed to develop lots of skills as an individual in order to survive. Writer claims it would be a little difficult to replicate a hunter-gatherer algorithm into a machine because machines usually do one task with utmost efficiency. Performing all tasks at once, like our ancestors, would be difficult for a machine. Writer predicts the obvious outcome of this scenario is loss of jobs for a large population who can do only one task. Moreover, humans who own such algorithms will become rich, so social disparity will rise. Economic gap will increase. Writer further predicts that just like today we agreed on intersubjective reality like nations and corporations, one day algorithms will also have legal rights and rights to property. And this prediction is not all that implausible, since today all the planet is already owned by intersubjective entities like nations and corporations. Question is, if machines can do everything that humans can, what will future humans do to occupy themselves with? What would they do to bring meaning to their existence? And one solution is drugs and computer games. Unwanted people who have lost their social and economic values, could engage themselves with such a life. But such an existence occupied with drugs and virtual reality will question the ideal of humanism regarding the importance of free will and individualism. Once again, just to reiterate humanism's values, the customer is always right, the voter knows the best, and beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder, thus upholding the sacredness of individualism. An axiom of individual liberalism is, quote, I possess an authentic self and only I can explore that authentic self, and nobody has the right to dictate to me what I should do with my life, unquote. These tenets of liberalism will be questioned in coming years as the idea of self degenerates. Various biometric tools today monitor our bodily functions and warn us if there is something wrong with our inner biochemical processes. This helps us take care of our inner biochemical algorithm. If something is seriously wrong, we can take preemptive action to avoid any terminal illnesses in our bodies. Thus, superior machine algorithms actually help us prolong our existence as a biochemical algorithm. Here's a suggestion: why don't you do DNA sequencing of yourself? That will give you a better idea as to who you really are, rather than wasting your time in philosophical queries as to know thyself and all that. You don't need to waste your time in pursuit of something that you can easily outsource to a higher and better algorithm. It is a kind of wish fulfillment, isn't it, that a superior networked algorithm can tell us more about ourselves than we can probe on our own. Yes, I understand that we are just algorithms. We behave in a particular pattern that can be understood by another better networked algorithm and can diagnose faults in our algorithm. This networked algorithm, I suppose, can guide our choices and advise us on various aspects of our lives. Wouldn't that be better? You're being sarcastic, aren't you? I know you are. You're worried that relegating our decisions to networked algorithm means losing control over our lives. Yes, but this is already happening. And that is the worrying part. Liberal narratives always thought it was heroic to fight against tyranny. An individual will fight against a collective or an authority that is oppressive and tyrannical. But today, there is no such singular external authority that crushes the individual. Today, an individual is dismantled from within. We have renounced our individualism to networked algorithms in return of petty conveniences. The writer predicts new religions will arise from Silicon Valley, techno-religions that will divide into techno-humanism and dataism. This techno-religion will offer us everything that traditional religions offer us: peace, harmony, immortality, but right here on this planet while we are alive, not in the sky when we are dead. First offshoot of techno-religion is techno-humanism, which believes Homo sapiens have run their course. They are no more useful and they should upgrade themselves with the help of technology and become Homo Deus, which will retain some essence of Homo sapiens but will have upgraded physical and mental abilities. Techno-humanism believes the first cognitive revolution granted a simple ape from Africa so much power through understanding of intersubjective reality that they conquered the entire planet and became the dominant species. They believe the same cognitive revolution will upgrade us all to the level of Homo Deus and perhaps dominate the entire galaxy. This idea does sound like evolutionary humanism. While in earlier time that led to eugenics and genocide, this time around techno-humanism believes it is a slow and peaceful process and we can use genetic engineering, nanotechnology, brain-computer interface. This project is easier said than done because the writer says we still don't understand the human mind or mental state. It is a spectrum and we are capable of seeing only a few parts of it. We cannot fathom the depth of it. It is like an ocean and we have just started to sail. According to the writer, whatever research that we have done in understanding Homo sapiens' mental state is done on weird society, Western, educated, industrial, rich and democratic. A very limited sample. Homo sapiens have vast cultures, races, ethnicities and complex societies apart from that weird society that may experience different mental states, and they will remain vastly unknown because they are not studied and researched. And that too, all this in just one era, this current time. Writer says There must be an ancient hunter-gatherer Stone Age era that must have experienced mental states that we will never be able to understand. Even other species of homos like Neanderthals, they must have had a lot of spectrum of mental states that we could never know. In that sense, it's a vast ocean. Pre-modern cultures, shamans, meditating monks, Sufi mystics, they have understood something and documented mind-expanding experiences, experiencing infinity or blending into nothingness. That was pre-modern world, but modernity discredits all of that and gives importance to experiences of an average Joe occupied with mundane things. This is a mistake, according to writer, and he says Native American shamans, Buddhist monks and Sufi mystics also have expanded mental states, but we don't have proper scientific study on them, and in fact in the modern world we disregard them as abnormal. We've already understood that organisms are algorithms. Over the last century, we have managed to create algorithms for machines. Data religion puts these two areas of human understanding together. For dataism, every faculty of human understanding can be written as an algorithm that can be understood by machines. And machines can process such data faster and with more efficiency. For dataism, not only individuals but entire societies are data processing systems. Thus, capitalism and communism are just two different forms of data processing systems. One centralized, that is communism, and one distributed, that is capitalism. Political scientists also interpret human political structures as data processing systems, dictatorship as centralized, and democracy as distributed. In the 20th century, both capitalism and democracy gained upper hand over other systems because the distributed processing system worked better. Writer says democracy managed to outpace technological advancement in 20th century because politicians and voters understood technological progress. But in the 21st century, technology will develop faster than any human can understand or predict, and that will render our political system of democracy obsolete, as before consensus over any certain technology can be made, it would have morphed 10 times into something that would be beyond understanding of any politicians or voters. Writer predicts traditional democratic process will lose to technology. That does not mean authoritarian dictatorship will replace democracy. Writer says that option is also impossible because no dictator will be able to understand new technology to utilize to his benefit. The 20th century dictators could offer some form of vision to their masses, the writer says. But in the 21st century, dictators won't be able to form any kind of vision in the face of rapidly developing technology. Writer says it is difficult to say what kind of new political system will emerge in the 21st century, as nobody seems to be in charge of rapid change that is happening. Writer says data processing is the only prominent entity that will pervade the entire world, and one essential raw material for data processing is information. Every individual, according to writer, wants to be part of this global data processing system and will willingly provide whatever personal and private information that this data processing system will ask for. Writer says an individual has become a tiny chip inside a giant data system that nobody understands. Since this giant data flow is all-knowing and all-powerful, connecting and merging into it has become a source of meaning for many individuals. Last words of this book mention how dataism undermines humanism. Humanism values human emotions and feelings, which for dataism are nothing more than meaningless algorithms with very little practical value. In that sense, dataism has become a new revolution, just like humanism was a few centuries ago. This book, written by a historian, has many insights into human history, albeit not all accurate, but manages to tell quite a nice story. We both thoroughly enjoyed the main ideas in this book. Yes, one complaint is that there were too many tangents that the writer goes on to, and that makes reading this book a little tedious. But sometimes even those tangents were enjoyable to read. Yeah, same complaint here. We'll keep on reading such books and talking about them. We like discussing ideas. This book was full of them. Again, just to remind our viewers, this is not a book review. This is quote-unquote talk about books. As he said, we like discussing ideas, and we're looking forward to reading more such books and talking about more ideas. So that's all for now. Bye. Do you still want to be a Homo Deus? Yes, unfortunately I'm not rich enough to afford it.